Sportstar's recap of the NBA playoffs 2022-2023 first round. My name is Nihit and I have my colleague with me, Abhishek, Saini, and we'll take you through each of the first round matchups. Starting with the big one, of course, the Warriors versus Kings match, which went right down to the wire. It was Game 7, and where the big man Steph Curry stepped up. So, Abhishek, would you like to take us through the game and what were the highlights?
Phenomenal. Again, it was Steph Curry at his shooting best. We've seen him step up in Game 7s all the way back in 2018 and 2016. He's done that against Oklahoma City Thunder, then Houston Rockets. And last night was another such occasion when he scored 50 points. And
which is a record, by the way.
Which is a Game 7 record. He broke Kevin Durant's record from 2021. And I think that sort of was a fitting end to the series overall because shooting wise it has been Curry all the way. It is very evident from the team that they're playing their first series. Maybe they're playing their first round series because the supporting cast of Wiggins, Klay Thompson, Jordan Poole, all these players have not shot that well. And I think another important aspect in Golden State winning yesterday was Kevon Looney's rebounding. He's been a massive presence in the paint and off the glass for Warriors. And yesterday in particular he did not allow any room to Sabonis and the Harrison Barnes, the center for Kings. And I think that sort of it was a tight finish. Given Warriors' troubles on the road during the regular season, there were doubts whether they'll pull through in the last game, but they managed to do that. And despite the loss, credit to the Kings. They've been phenomenal, and people were saying that will they be able to sustain their regular season form in the playoffs, and they've shown they can. De'Aaron Fox was sublime. He can shoot from the paint, he can take layups, he can drive to the bucket, he can score 3-pointers, and with support from Malik Monk, they I think really troubled Warriors and pushed him to the edge. And I think under Mike Brown they can see a run for the title, or for the conference finals in the coming 2-3 years.
Moving on to the opponents that Warriors will face in the second round, which is Los Angeles Lakers. Steph Curry versus LeBron James. The date is set. Los Angeles Lakers beat Memphis Grizzlies in the first round 4-2. A lot of words were spoken from the Grizzlies side, but all the talking from the Lakers was done on the court. Saini, would you like to just take us through the game and what worked for Lakers and where they would need to improve going into the semifinals against the Warriors?
I think the only potential weakness for Lakers has been the inconsistency by Anthony Davis. He's had either very phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal performances, or he's been dismal in shooting. Again, like Kevon Looney, Davis was also a massive presence for Lakers in the paint. He got a lot of rebounds, but he was very inconsistent with the shooting. Thankfully for Lakers this time, their auxiliary cast of Austin Reeves, Rui Hachimura, all these players stepped up and made amends, so to speak, for Davis. But I think if you have to beat a team like Warriors, you need Anthony Davis, who is one of their star players, to fire up. And other than that, I think LeBron James was at his clutch best, and I think Dylan Brooks sort of made a mistake by poking the bear there.
He got his 40 twice.
He got his 40, but again, Lakers Grizzlies have again failed to walk the talk, as they say. Ja Morant in an interview earlier in the season had said that he's not troubled by anybody in the West, and yet we have here them struggling to make it past the first round. We'll have to say that obviously Steven Adams missing was a major miss for the Lakers, but again this is the second year running where they were expected to make a run for the conference finals and they've failed.
From the West, we move to the East, where Milwaukee Bucks basically got Jimmy Butler. They lost to the 8th seeded Miami Heat 1-4 in the first round. where Jimmy Butler was the star of Miami Heat for almost every game. Abhishek, what do you have to say about the class of Jimmy Butler?
Oh, phenomenal. I think social media is terming him as Play of Jimmy, and he's shown why he took up responsibility for the team. And I think this was in the last game when he forced the overtime in the fifth game. Coach Eric Sportstar was drawing up the play with another player taking the shot. It was not supposed to be Jimmy Butler, but he went up to him and said, "No, I will take the deciding shot," and that sort of sums up what kind of a player he is. He's stepped up in the 2020 season when that was his first season with Heat. He took them to the finals. Last season also he had that shot to sort of win the conference against Boston Celtics. So he's outshot Bucks by single-handedly outshot the Bucks, and Bucks is a team that sort of works on trying to defend the screens. They try to drop back from the perimeter, so to speak, and Jimmy Butler exploited that very weakness in the Bucks team. You cannot discount the fact that Giannis being injured also played a part in the series. He missed 2 games, and even when he came back, he was not 100% fit. You could make that out because Giannis is a player who likes to take a lot of dunks. Drives to the basket. He wants to bring his physical strength into play, which he did not do. He had to resort to shooting from the mid-range a lot. But overall, I think a few questionable calls also from Bucks. In the last game, they did not take a timeout. They had a timeout left, and they decided, if you take a timeout, you can restart the play from half court, which gives you a statistically higher probability of scoring a shot. But somehow I think they slipped their mind. They didn't pay attention. Maybe they did not take that timeout, and it proved fatal. Also, during the entire series, Giannis did not guard Jimmy Butler, and obviously Drew Holiday is a phenomenal defender. He's earned praise from a lot of NBA players, but when you see Jimmy Butler, who's firing 56 points, 46 points in games, you have to put your best defender, you have to put your best player to guard that particular opponent, and the Bucks did not do that, and I think that cost them. And apart from that, I think where Heat outdid the Bucks was players contributing from the bench. Kevin Love, Oladipo, Duncan Robinson. Duncan Robinson was shooting similar to what we saw in the 2020 season, which led to that big contract signing in the next year. Kevin Love, all these players contributed for the Heat, which was not the case for the Bucks. And it's a slightly disappointing end to the season, but I'm sure Bucks will be back to the bang next season.
So the opponent for the semi-finals for Miami Heat is New York Knicks, who surprisingly beat the Cleveland Cavaliers 4-1 in their first round series. You mentioned it as a surprise result, Abhishek. Why? Why is that so?
It's basically to do with the pedigree. You have Jarrett Allen, you have Donovan Mitchell, you have Grayson Allen. These players, they have been in the league for quite some time, and Knicks, obviously their reputation precedes them. I don't know whether I should say this or not, but they've not won a series. They've not won a series since 2012-13 season. So I know all these factors played in mind, but I think they physically outdid the Cavaliers. Credit to them. They had Mitchell Robinson, who was again showing why rebounding is such an important aspect of the game. And there was a game, I think, where he had more rebounds than Jarrett Allen and Iran Mobley combined, which gives a statement. And the Knicks did that despite Julius Randle not playing a majority of the series against them. He's picked up an ankle injury. He came out for a couple of games, but he was not at his 100%. Credit to the Knicks. But again, coming up with Heat, we've already had one game of that series, and Jimmy Butler is showing no signs of slowing down. So it will be fun to see
that ankle injury is not that serious.
It's not. I think if there was any chance of him missing out the game, we would have heard of it by now. And like again, Jimmy Butler has been in the league for so long. He is one of the top guys of the league, and I think this is certainly a situation which he can handle.
Moving back to the West, starting with the Suns versus Clippers series, which Suns won 4-1. It was supposed to be Kevin Durant versus Kawhi Leonard contest, but Leonard was injured for major part of the series, which deprived the NBA fans of the much anticipated matchup. Russell Westbrook was still there for Clippers, but he couldn't cover the absence of Leonard. Abhishek, what do you have to say about this series, and what do you think Suns need to do going forward?
I think this series sort of put to display Phoenix's offensive might, and Kevin Durant and Devin Booker in fact they are, I think, one of the most threatening offensive units, because ideally if you have those kind of players, who can handle the ball well and jump and shoot, to try to double team those players. But Phoenix Suns has two of those players, so it is actually going to be very difficult to guard them. Clippers just failed to do that. We saw games where both those players were scoring 30s, 40s, and it gets too much. You need you need a scorer of that level to sort of cancel out those points for your team when you're up against the likes of Durant and Booker, and they have Chris Paul also. And it is interesting to note how they've shifted their approach, because in the previous two seasons we saw how Monty Williams wanted Chris Paul to sort of control play, dictate play, but this season they're happy with either of Kevin Durant or Devin Booker controlling the ball. As you mentioned, Kawhi Leonard being injured was a big loss for Clippers. This added to how Paul George was not a part of the team already. And Russell Westbrook was there, but after Kawhi Leonard got injured, it sort of looked like a disjointed team. And I think Russell Westbrook got 30 plus points in multiple matches after that. But unless it's a concerted team effort, I don't think you're going to stop Phoenix Suns. How Phoenix Suns can improve, one thing that is particularly worrisome for them is that they don't have a lot of strength on the bench, which is sort of intentional, because their entire focus was on getting Kevin Durant, and that sort of cost them players and bench strength in turn. So yeah, that sort of hampers the team, because as you go deeper into the postseason, the matches get more physical, they get more intense, the bodies tend to tire out. You need players who can pull off the minutes on the court, and I don't know how they will do that. Other than that, I think one major aspect to look forward to is DeAndre Ayton. DeAndre Ayton will be extremely important for the team when they play the Nuggets in the next series, because you need a presence in the paint, you need a additional scorer when you are up against two-time MVP Nikola Jokic.
So as Abhishek mentioned, the task going forward for Phoenix Suns is not easy, because their second round of the semi-final opponents are Denver Nuggets, who were pretty strong side in the regular season also, and in their first round series they beat the Wolves 4-1. Nuggets have a pretty good squad, in they have main players like Jokic, Jamal Murray and Jokic, and handling those guys could prove to be tough for Phoenix Suns. And what do you have to say about that series, Abhishek, Nuggets versus Wolves? I mean, it could have been a clean sweep. It should have been a sweep. It should have been a sweep, with all due respect to Minnesota Timberwolves. They got in through the play-in tournament. I think it was slightly down to complacency from Denver Nuggets. They sort of switched off in that one quarter, and I think it was a 17-7 run from Timberwolves, which saw Anthony Edwards force a game back in Minnesota. But yeah, Jamal Murray, I think he's finally showing that he is back to how he can shoot, what he's capable of shooting. He showed that again in the first game against Suns also.
Other than that, I think it's time for players like Aaron Gordon and Michael Porter Jr. to sort of step up, because in terms of desperation and drive, I think nobody can beat Denver Nuggets, because Michael Malone and the Nuggets are chasing that conference title and eventually the NBA Finals title. And you have a two-time MVP winner in your team, Nikola Jokic, who's an offensive nightmare to handle for any defense. So I don't know. I mean, you again, as I said, the reputation precedes a team. We've seen in the past that somehow the Nuggets have not been able to handle the pressure of the postseason. If players like Aaron Gordon and Michael Porter Jr. they do prove their worth, I think Suns don't have a chance of going past the team, given, as I said, the lack of bench strength they have.
And moving back to the East for the final two results that we are yet to discuss. First is the Celtics versus Hawks. Celtics were the heavy favorites going into the matchup, but still the series scoreline was 4-2. Hawks weren't completely, like, they were initially they were initially somehow outplayed in first of the few games, but they showed that they had the caliber to bounce back. Especially they had a player of Trae Young's quality, so they could fight the Celtics, but ultimately Celtics proved to be too powerful for Atlanta Hawks. Abhishek, what do you have to say about Celtics? The might they have, but still they were stretched to Game 6 by Hawks. Does that mean that their opponents in the semi have a chance?
It surely gives a room to say that they failed to close out the series, and they have Al Horford and Robert Williams, who are big bodies in the paint. They defend well, but Trae Young in particular exploited the lack of coverage at the perimeter. And Trae Young has a phenomenal range. He can shoot from 30 feet consistently at that. So I think that is where they need to improve on. If you have your paint guarded, you are cutting down the lane to drive up to the rim. You also have to make sure that there's nobody shooting at the perimeter. What bailed them out this year in the first round was Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum firing from the field goals. Jaylen Brown was absolutely phenomenal. I don't think there's any possible way to stop him when he gets going, and because of his form, there's this trend, not exactly a trend, but they call him the masked Brown and the unmasked Brown. But off late, I think he's shooting as consistently in both forms. And I think the only thing the Celtics need to worry about going against the Sixers in the next series is how will they guard the perimeter, because they have a guy named James Harden, who is going to make life tough for them if they leave the wings unmarked.
So the final result of the final, but actually the series that finished the earliest in the Eastern Conference was the Philadelphia 76ers versus the Brooklyn Nets. The only sweep in the first round. Sixers won 4-0. Joel Embiid and James Harden doing much of the work for the team and proving very tough for the Nets to handle. But going into the semis against Celtics, do you think there might be some questions regarding Embiid's fitness? Would they be slightly worried?
Embiid was actually Brooklyn Nets tried to physically outdo him. It's very difficult to do that given the big man that Embiid is.
Yeah.
But I think despite that, Embiid going up against, as I said, Robert Williams and Al Horford is going to be a very intriguing battle, intriguing matchup, how things unfold. But the only way Sixers can exploit Boston Celtics is by controlling the perimeter. They have Tyrese Maxey, they have Tobias Harris and James Harden. James Harden in the recent past has shifted more towards finding the right pass, finding a teammate, focus this game more on assisting other players. Whereas in his time at Houston Rockets, he was known as a 3-point shooter. And again in this series as well against the Brooklyn Nets, he did not shy from taking the shot from downtown. And if Celtics do not find a way to sort of work that problem, he can actually hurt them. And other than that, I think for the Sixers, if you talk about the Sixers, Paul Reed is a player who stepped up when Embiid was injured in the fourth game. Paul Reed is a player who's been questioned about whether he can fill in the big shoes of Joel Embiid, or not even fill in the shoes. Can he be a proper support to Joel Embiid, because you need Embiid to rest as well, and you need the bench to come up and fill the minutes. But this series, I think he took some 15 rebounds in the fourth game when Embiid was missing, and that was a massive boost for Sixers going into the match.
So this was all. These were all the results from the first round of the NBA playoffs. Do follow Sportstar's coverage for the semi-finals in the NBA playoffs this season.